speak. So today is the 95th Security Thought Leadership webinar. And those of you who join us regularly will know we're here every Tuesday and Thursday since the pandemic started at this time, where we examine a topic of central importance to the security world. And the idea of thought leadership is not to try and solve issues, but to generate thinking about them. And by doing that, by critiquing, by analysing, by tearing them apart, what we hope to do is think critically today in order to get a better type of security tomorrow. And today is a topic that has attracted a lot of attention, this webinar, I have to say. And it's the role of security consultancy, thinking about the new normal. And one of the big attractions, I think, of this topic is that by speaking to the world of consultancy, we get insights into the sorts of things being advised and the sorts of things going on in companies. And so we get to get insights on the broader security world. And I have today panelists who have got deep expertise, and I know many of you write to me and say to me how good we are at getting panelists, broad level expertise from different types of consultancy in different countries. And so what I'm going to do in a second is I'm going to invite our panelists to introduce themselves, and once they've done that, I'll invite them to make their opening statement. And once they've made the opening statement, I invite you, the audience, to ask questions. And you can do that by using the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen. If you use the question and answer button on your screen, I'll endeavour to get to you. Try and get your questions in early, and I'll make sure that I incorporate it if I can in the ensuing discussion. So without further ado, then we'll go to our panelists, and first of all to the United States and meet Jeff. Jeff.
Good morning, Martin. Good day, all, from the Great Pacific Northwest. Martin, I really appreciate the opportunity to participate in the panel today. I've been an internationally recognized security and risk consultant for, about 22 years. I'm an executive level consultant focused on strategy, vision, and efficiency, which are all enabled through a quality risk assessment. I look forward to engaging with my fellow panelists on a great subject. And, you know, as far as, did you want to go into opening comments now, or did you?
No. Just introduce yourself first, Jeff. Then we'll come back to those.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much indeed, Jeff. Let's go from the United States over to India and meet Pound. Pound, let's introduce yourself, please.
I think great to have everyone around with your cup of tea, coffee, or beer based on where you are located. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all. Thanks a lot, Martin, for this opportunity. My name is Pawan Desai. I am the co-founder and CEO of MitKat Advisory Services. We are India and Singapore-based security consulting. I think we do a lot of work in Asia Pacific region, right from consulting to advisory, and everything which we can think of in security consulting. So I think thanks once again to Martin, and I look forward for discussing this topic openly, because this has always been a topic always in my mind, which gives me sleepless nights. What is the future of consultants? I think if consultants are not good enough, then what advice are they going to give? I think.
Well, exactly. We're about to find that out. We've got Jorge Septien joining us from Mexico as well. He's been held up. We're hoping that he'll join in the next few minutes. So let's, without further ado, then let's go to our opening statements. This is where we give our panelists 3 minutes for them to give us an insight into what they consider the issues to be in this topic. So, Jeff, over to you.
Well, you know, a number of things. You know, in our industry, you know, essentially what consultants are is we're problem solvers. And we have to engage in a problem solving process. Everybody learns from college, you know, the first step of the problem solving process to identify the problem. And what we find is in our industry, in the security and risk industry, the method for identifying problems is a good, high quality, full risk threat and vulnerability assessment according to ISO 31000, security management 28000, and some of the great works that have been done by ASIS International and the risk assessment standard. But what has really changed in my industry this year is digital transformation. I was very concerned that with the onset of COVID-19 that my business would kind of dry up. And instead, what I found was a great path to success. Look at us today. We're engaging in a global conversation with strategy folks from all over the world, and we're going to collaborate on this panel. I have found that the ability to use this medium in my business has allowed me to engage the same type of strategic discussions that lead towards solutions. So the digital, we start with a risk assessment enabled by digital transformation to assist our clients in developing cost-effective results for their problems. Everybody is working today with reduced revenue due to the global pandemic that we're in. So finding ways to help people operate more efficiently without taking away from their core mission or the goals they have to their organizations has been an absolute amazing opportunity. I've really engaged in some very interesting projects over the past year.
Thank you very much indeed, Jeff. So let's go then to Pawan. And Pawan, just 3 minutes from you on your thoughts on what's happening in the world of consultancy. Pawan, over to you.
250. I'll just take a step back. I think just wanted to tell everyone that the speed of change in last 30 years is going to be the speed of change in next 5 years. This is the era which we are in. So I am not so much troubled with the COVID, what has happened. It is just a blip in our lifetime. But the speed of change, what we are going to now experience is going to be phenomenal. So the future is going to be a state of continuous change. So it is going to be uncomfortable for a lot of us, but that is going to be the new state. So we are not going to be settled in any form or a shape. It is going to be a continuously changing and getting metamorphed into a different animal altogether. So very, very important, the value of experience which we give in last decades for 20 years guy with a single product, a value experience is going to be wiped off. It is not going to be the value for experience. It is going to be the value for adaptability and continuous learning, which is going to be there. Every one of us is going to be a newbie. So that era has gone that we have 30 years of experience, 20 years of experience. Everybody is going to be a newbie and we have to behave like a newbie. We have to continuously learn. In security consulting or a security industry, it is a very perception-based assessments and the way we give solutions. The future is going to be data driven. It is going to be everything about data, which we are not used to. So all our perception are going to take a totally 180-degree turn maybe, because it is going to be data driven. There is an excellent book by Kevin Kelly, which is Inevitable, which he says that we are going to move from a state of utopia to protopia. So protopia is basically a continuous shift which is going to happen. And that is where I see maximum opportunities for security consulting especially. But if we are able to play on those intersections of those technology advancement, so the future is not going to be 10 years down the line. Future is 2 years, 3 years. That is going to be a long-term vision. If we are able to predict in next 2-3 years what is going to happen, I think we have done a good job as consultants. The days are over for making plans for next 5 or 10 years, because what is going to be implemented is next 5 years is not even invented yet. So let's not kid anybody. This thing, so nobody has a vision for next 5 years. All of us can think about 2 years, 3 years down the line. Continuous learning and interacting with different mindset and different perception, different type of people will give us more advantage rather than getting into our silos of one product, one technology. I am expert on this. It is going to be obsolete. So if you are in a comfort level, you are already obsolete. If you are not, I can assure you your job is going to be obsolete in next 12 months. So if you are comfortable, it is not the place to be in. I think that's what my take is on this.
Pawan, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. And Jorge, thank you very much indeed for joining us from Mexico. Okay, could you just say, give a brief introduction first to a little bit of background, just 20 seconds, Jorge, if you wouldn't mind, just so the audience know who you are.
Hi, everyone. I'm based in Mexico City, but I've been living for the past 15 years in California, USA. I am a PCB board member, a professional certification board with ASIS International. Been working in this field of security and safety for 35 years uh, uh, up to now. Years ago, I was the Citigroup Security and Safety Director for Latin America. Today, I am the president of a large group in Mexico and South America.
Thank you very much indeed. And Jorge, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Can you just give us your thoughts, just up to 3 minutes, just your thoughts on what's happening in the world of consultancy and where it's going? Over to you.
Well, first of all, we need to realize that we are human beings as all of the other people around us. And we need to be one step ahead about just knowing what's happening really, what's possible to be done and what's not. Unfortunately, this pandemic has just stopped everyone inside the house. And for the consultancy issues, we have suffered as well as stop, especially in large corporations who have just sent all the people to the houses in order to be working there. Here in Latin America, it's not a different scenario. Everything is just coming back to normality. But first of all, we are better aware of what's happening. We're better aware of what's need to be done and what's not to be done. Today, technology has been a really powerful resource about just talking with our clients, with our people, to define and adjust certain measures that are needed to be taken in place about not just security but safety. I mean, safety has been a major player in our consultancy role in Latin America as well.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's go to the questions then. And the first question I've got is from, it's sent in advance actually, from Mark Cavies. And he's asking about the regulation of security consultants. And I'll come to Jeff first, if I might, on this, Jeff. And one of the things that Mark's asking about is about the value of some scheme of statutory regulation, because if this role is important, the problem is anyone can claim to do it. And as Jorge's just said there, you know, we're all human beings. How do you determine the good from the bad? Jeff, do we need a licensing scheme?
Well, that's a very good question. I would say, you know, consulting is a subset of security. I look at the individual's credentials, look where they've been, look what they've done to determine you know, whether they're suitable for your organization or not. A certificate or a licensing scheme doesn't necessarily tell you if you have a good consultant. You know, my clients ask me, I'm happy to share referrals from my existing clients and past clients. I'm happy to send information. I'm happy to make the business case for what I do. You know, when I can walk into a client and save them $4.5 million on an efficiency study, that's a powerful statement. You know, and their investment in my time is under $50,000 for a $4.5 million savings. And, you know, and I think that's a compelling business case. So licensing, I think, is fine. But when you come across a consultant that's got, you know, 15, 20, 25 years in the industry, they have a background, they have a reputation. And as you would with any person that you contract, you want to ensure that they have the appropriate bona fides and background to meet your needs. Not every,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to move on to Pound. Same question, Pound. Michael Franken says they've got quite a rigorous regime in Canada. What have you got in India? And don't you think this is something that we need? Pound.
Yes. Great. We do not have any regulations regarding security consultant in India, so anybody can become a security consultant. Anybody can claim to be the best in class, so that is not a problem. I tend to agree on the part that we should not have any licensing. The reason being, as I said earlier, the whole environment is moving so fast. So if you make regulations around it, we might be losing a very, very important talent, which is the youngsters and the new guys, and they have a very different way of looking at things. So if you put criteria, so unless you have 5, 10 years or 15 years or 20 years of experience, you cannot do that. What we are going to get is only those mundane ideas which we learned in early 2000s or much before that. I don't think so we are going to get those fresh ideas in place. So licensing or that thing should not be there. Yes, the credibility, what kind of work they have done, what are we expecting from them? Most of the problems I think in which I face, especially I think most of the consultants must be facing, clients themselves don't know what they are looking for, because it is not very, very clear. It's a very, very evolving and a consultative domain. So unless you are comfortable with them, they are able to solve your problem, and they are going to, as Jeff says, if you are able to solve, give them a saving of $4.5 million. I don't care whether the person has an experience or not, but is he making sense or not? I'll go with that rather than having a licensing regime implemented on that.
Okay, and let me come to you, to Jorge. What's the situation in, I'll say Mexico, because Latin America is too big. Is there a licensing regime for consultants there? Does there need to be one?
Well, unfortunately, here in Mexico, we don't have a license in order to go forward as a consultant. We are working hard with the authorities in order to get one. Especially the private security sector is getting licenses in order to provide the services, but not the consultant. What we are just pushing hard is to bring the certifications, international certifications, especially the certifications given by ASIS International, which are well respected as well. Unfortunately, we have very few people who have been certified in different fields in Mexico. We're growing fast, but unfortunately, we have 125 million people country, and we only have around 400 certificates.
Okay, interesting. So there is interest in Mexico and not in the other two. Okay, let's move on. We might well overlap this again. I'm going to go to Barry Millett. Barry Millett is actually himself involved in consultancy in the past. And Jeff, you said you highlighted the need for security consultants to have to adapt during the response to COVID-19 via digital platform. Pao, you said the same thing. Do you think that consultancy delivery will continue to have to change? What will it look like? And when we get back to this new normal, to what extent will we go back to meeting face to face because that's better? Jeff?
Well, you know, interesting question. A lot of the work I did is based on interrelationships, interviewing people, putting my hands on things. I have an amazing investigative background, which really helped me in utilizing this digital tool and engaging in digital transformation in my own business, because I had clients that were coming to me and said, you know, Jeff, we need this efficiency study done, but you can't come here. Can you map out a strategy for accomplishing this using a platform? We use Microsoft Teams as opposed to Zoom, but similar concept. And it took me about a week to develop a strategy, but I have now since used that strategy on 4 or 5 different projects. Now, as we return to our new normal, there are certain efficiencies that can be gained by using a digital platform. But there are times that are going to require a site visit. And I think what we're going to see as we move forward is a melded construct. You know, we're always looking at ways to be more efficient and more cost effective in what we do. And I think platforms like Zoom and Teams and others, and the ability to engage with folks in this medium, what this is going to do is cut down the time I need to spend at a client site, because a lot of the pre-work and the footwork can be done beforehand utilizing digital media. So, you know, there's no going back from this, and I think we're finding this in a number of areas, but this is not going to be a detractor to what I do. This is going to be a cost-effective enhancement to the way I do my business.
Okay. So let's go to Jorge now. Jorge, same question to you. I mean, the question is from Barry about the way in which consultancy might change as we go forward. Having had experience now of working in this way, do you think either COVID-19 or the experience of COVID-19 will lead to a different type of consultancy going forward? Jorge.
Well, I think we need to adapt. We need to adjust to the present times in order to just be more efficient about the way we provide our services. Consultancy goes with technology, with it deals basically with knowledge, with practice, with certifications, with a lot of different issues that gives or provides confidence to our clients, but most of all deals with logics and the way things should be approached, and technology and the way we deal with the consultancy services need to be more effective, need to be more, be given faster, and I think we need to be that way.
Okay, I mean, from your point of view, Jorge, are you seeing in any way a demand from clients that for a different type of approach? I mean, are you expecting that basically it's going to be the same thing in a post-COVID-19 environment? Or are you saying, wait a minute, we've done without you visiting us and charging us a lot of money per day to do this now. You can do a lot more from home, and that's what we'll expect.
Well, what we have been thinking about this is that unfortunately, because the COVID and because the pandemic, criminals are just thinking differently. I mean, threats are just changing rapidly. We have more threats. We have, more aggressive threats, especially about just the digital world. And the consultants need to be one step ahead of everything. I mean, need to be learning fast. I mean, just studying faster, just understanding what's happening, just be better prepared about just approaching the clients. I don't think the old traditional way of approach should be working the same way, as the threats are just moving faster than before. So here, as an example, in Latin America, we have more extortion cases that are coming through digital world, or just telephones, or just WhatsApps and Facebooks and whatever. We have less kidnappings, but we have more of this type of aggressions that are just keeping data just encrypted and just being affected by the criminal. So a consultant needs to be approaching these kind of threats and to be more efficient for providing a good service.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Pavel, let me come to you and add a comment made by Michael Gibbs, who's a former panelist, actually, Pavel. And he makes the point that we've been hearing from chief CSOs that they'd rather have a business person than a security person. And numbers have done research. And increasingly, there is this view, you've got to be very business oriented. How is the role of consultant reflecting that change, or is it? Param.
I think a great question by Michael. I think security is the only domain, I think, in most of the business domains, which doesn't take decision based on numbers, because we do not have any dashboard as a CSO dashboard to take decisions on. And that's one of the biggest reason why most of the decisions are perception based. And that is where the question, I think, question itself is a very relevant in this case, that yes, we are enablers of a business. Ultimately, if business is there, then our role exists as CSOs. Otherwise, there is nothing which exists for us. So if you are not aligned to business, and if you are not running the same sheets and having an ROI based on those changes which are happening, we are not going to get effective. And that is where the questions gets asked for most of the boardrooms when we speak with a lot of global CSOs, that if no incident does happen, that means have you done a good job? Or if incident happen and if you manage it, have you done it well? Most of the people do not have answer, because it is not a data driven. That's why business guys once we have more matrices to manage and what we are doing it, I think that is what is going to change the perception, and a lot of different aspects are going to evolve once we start believing or relying our security based on data, not on perception.
Yeah, interesting. Let me come to the same question from you, Jeff, if I might, from this. It's an interesting point, isn't it, about the extent to which one can get by on just security knowledge, which, what's your thought on that?
Well, I don't think you can get by just on security knowledge. And I've been an advocate of this for many years, not just in consultants, but in security leaders in general. We need to have a knowledge of business. I can talk security with anybody here all day long. But when I have to make a business case for a new security system, a business case for increased staffing, a business case for a new way of doing business, I have to be able to make that business case to the COO, to the CFO, and to the CEO. And they don't speak security. They only speak business. So, across the board within the security industry, we have to have a knowledge of business. Fortunately, that's what my education is in, with a significant background in engineering. So that allows me to bring the project management piece to this as well. And it's important. I mean, we look at ESRM, Enterprise Security Risk Management. The whole focus of enterprise security risk management is the intersection of business and security, and how we promote security into the C-suite.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. We're going to overlap this again in a minute, I think, but let's just move on because I want to get another question in, which sort of does overlap it. Actually, I'm going to come to you first, Pawan, on this one. And it's a good one, actually. It comes from Peter Herweg. And one of the issues that's troubling people about there is how we change the perception of the corporate world with regards to security. And I think it's the right thing to ask you consultants who work across the board here, because it's a massive, massive issue, this perception issue that underpins. Pawan, I'll come to Jorge afterwards. Pawan first, what's your thoughts on this? How we go about it is Peter's question.
Yeah, I think I totally, I'll add on to what Jeff said. We have to start talking business language. So it is, so a lot of people ask, suddenly security people had become very, very important during COVID. So it is not that security people have become important. Basically the language changed, and the security team started using their data, the way they are operating more aligned towards business, and business started seeing a value in that. So it is just that we have to start aligning towards business and start speaking that language. This has been spoken empty number of times across the globe. But I think this is very, very important. Unless we start speaking business language, we make business cases which are business relevant. We can't go and ask for a budget where there are cuts happening across the corner. We have to have an ROI on where we are spending and why we are spending. We cannot say because it used to happen that way, that's why we should continue doing the same way. I think the ROI models are not evolved yet in security industry, and that is the biggest role which consultant needs to play, because they have to take a lead in this. As I think Jeff says, ESRM. We have to have those frameworks in place and get a dollar value to why we are doing that. And once we start speaking in dollar value, perception will change automatically. I don't think so. There is any other way which I am aware of. But I'm happy to hear views from other people.
Okay. Let's go to Jorge, because I mean, this is a biggie, Jorge, right? The perception of the security world, and some would argue people like you are in the best position to influence it if you work across organizations, etc. What are your thoughts on what it's going to take to change perceptions?
Well, I think we need to speed up our job about being trusted people. I mean, we are supposedly being hired. Our services are just being needed because we are supposed to look the world different. I mean, we have a better picture about what's happening with each business. As Jeffrey mentioned before, becoming engineers or just knowing the logic way things work make us approach things better. in most of the cases for engineers. In my case, I think we are in a must about just talking to people that perception for them, and we need to understand that perception means reality to people. But we need to go through a difference between possibilities about threats happening versus probabilities. And that's our job. I mean, just knowledge, learning, experience, procedures need to focus on probabilities. And if we are talking to business people, businesses are just done because they want to make money. I mean, progress deals with money and people having jobs. If we are in a must to protect that business, that source of jobs, we need to talk about probabilities, and there's where our techniques and our experience, our procedures, our certifications, our everything deals about just bringing the picture about what is probable and what is not.
Thank you. I mean, Jeff, would you say, Erica Gibbons' question, would you say that, a brief answer if you wouldn't mind, that businesses are ready to spend on security again? Post-COVID.
I would say businesses are ready to prudently spend on security again. They realize what happens when an event occurs. So identifying those events before they occur and showing the impact and consequence of those events on the enterprise, and be able to, the ability to demonstrate those in impact to life or impact to people, impacts to strategy, impacts to equipment, and impacts to reputation are very important. And I do think people are ready to reinvest in security if the proper case can be made where that application of security will mitigate an impact to one of those four areas.
Okay, fair enough. Let me ask Pawan very quickly the same question. Do you sense, Pawan, that companies are ready to spend again on security? I mean, one of the interesting question of Rajiv Malda, by the way. I suppose, in a sense, it's difficult for them to see how they. Is it difficult to persuade people to spend on consultancy specifically? Pawan, you're on mute at the moment, Pawan.
I think if they have survived COVID and they have cut costs, a business will always demand, why should we spend on security? And that is going to be the thing. If you are able to survive during COVID without security or less security, why can't you survive in the new normal with the same thing? I think management might be happy to invest in technology more, kind of a thing, and which is more scalable, which is more affordable, rather than investing and going back to the state where we were pre-COVID levels. So I think those kind of spends I don't see coming back in security unless we are able to give them the value. And that value will come from ROI models, that will come from a lot of, I think, a lot of value adds which are provided. So the consultants are going to be in a huge pressure to which they are not used to, because what they used to say used to be gospel's truth a few years back. If they have said this is high risk, this is high risk. Now it is going to get questioned at every point and every juncture. So I don't see those spending levels are going to come back. The spending will only happen if there is a proper justification and ROI on that.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Let me come to Jorge. Jorge, question for you. It's a slightly different one. It's from Douglas Lethbridge. And it's talking about how someone can start off in the security world. I'm slightly sort of mindful on this, Jorge, with the fact that anyone can come along to be an expert. What's the routine? What's the credible routine? And I suppose, since we haven't got licensing, overlapping a point from Keith Nielsen is, should we talk qualifications in some way? Jorge, your advice first, and I'll come back to Pawan.
Well, first of all, I may think that the person who wants to go into the advisory world needs to like to serve people. I mean, He must like to give the best he has available in his knowledge, in his personality about just helping the others. The other thing should be to have a background, to have an expertise in certain fields. No one is just an expert in every field. I mean, we need to focus about having a general knowledge, and that's why CPP certification works, because it gives you not an expertise in everything, but you have at least a minimum knowledge about many fields in the security industry. On the other side, you need to understand where you are standing at. I mean, the country, the state, the population, the way of thinking about that people, the laws. I mean, you need to learn a lot and you need to study a lot about where you're jumping in order to give a good advisory and to be just sitting in the same chair as the client. I mean, you need to think as the client thinks. You need to align with his thoughts in order to give him the better knowledge you can in order to focus in the problems you are solving. That's my thought.
Thank you very much indeed. It's an interesting point, though, Jorge. Let me come to you, Pawan, for the same point. How do you get started? And similar view to Jorge experience.
I think no, of course, great views from Jorge. I would like to add, anybody who wants to start in security consulting, get a degree in AI, machine learning, IoT, cybersecurity. That is the future. Forget about physical security and understanding. You have to have a minimum knowledge, but if you do not have these new skills, you are going to be obsolete.
Very interesting. Yeah.
That's my short view.
Yeah. Okay. Good answer. Thank you. Jeff, coming to you. And a question from Gordon Knight. This cropped up the other day, Jeff, actually, I meant. And talking about doing security risk assessments. Now, all of you have made the point you've got to understand the problem, okay? In different ways you've been saying that. But I mean, Jeff, can you really do that virtually? Don't you have to be there to feel? You can get someone to show you a photograph, as explained to me the other day, or a video image of a site, but you can get someone to talk it through. But if you want to do a job, don't you have to be there, Jeff?
Well, that was one of the changed business models we had this past year. I have a client. They had money set aside for a very large risk assessment. They were closed to outside anybody coming in, any outside contractor into their facilities whatsoever. But, a lot of pre-work can be done utilizing, digital means. What I ended up doing is they engaged one of their employees who is a former law enforcement officer. Now, this took great trust. But what I did is I spent 2 days training that law enforcement officer to look at things the way that I look at them. And then we engaged on a FaceTime call, and then eventually by Microsoft Teams. And while that individual walked around the facility and looked at things that I would look at, we also went through some of the past assessments and issues we had found at other facilities. So this individual had a roadmap on the way I work and what we would do if I were there. And as we walked through, I pointed out things, we made notes, and it was a collaborative effort. First time I had ever done a virtual risk assessment, but I was very fortunate to have an individual that had the baseline knowledge of the facility, was willing to learn, and the assurance from the client that I wasn't training my replacement.
Yeah.
So, but, the client essentially said, no, we've got plenty of other things for him to do, and we like what you do, but this is how we have to accomplish it this time. So that was how I engaged it.
Thanks very much indeed. I'm going to move on. So I want to bring Pawan, I want to bring Jorge on this one because it's a biggie. Just to get the point then. So Michael Franklin is asking about whether you can really get a feel. Gordon Knight is asking about how risk assessments might change. And just to give you an insight, Dan Ling has been saying, look, all these years we've been told that people are the biggest asset of the company, and they're not there anymore. They're working from home, and they're not even going to come back en masse. They're going to work from home part-time. Poyan first and Jorge second. Hasn't this changed the game dramatically? Poyan first.
Absolutely dramatically. I think it changes the whole perception. I think what we have seen is, let's not benchmark the technology progress which is happening today with what is going to happen in future. We are at a tip of the iceberg. I think the things which are going to change in future is phenomenally different. So I think virtual risk assessment, when I think I'll say only two things which I see in future. When a heart transplant can happen by a doctor remotely, I think risk assessment happening is no big deal. And then there's a future, there's a white paper I'll say which says that we in next 5 to 10 years down the line, we may have actual relationships with robots. When we can have actual relationship, I think having a physical security remotely is a very, very small thing. I think it is inevitable. It is going to happen, and the risk perception totally changes because now people don't no more exist. So the risk which were there because of the people has changed drastically. So I think, and it is going to be very, very evolving, dynamic. So it can totally happen virtually with AI, VR and AR happening. We can actually get the feel also of a location. I don't think so. It is going to be. You can sit in a beaches of Bahama and actually do a risk assessment of an oil and gas establishment in Kuwait, getting the same feel. I think it is going to be a very near future, not far-fetched.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Listen, we could go. We're running out of time, and I want to get a final question to all three of you. And rather interestingly, Jorge said just now, spoke about the changing threat posed by criminals behaving in different ways, which I think is an interesting point. Eddie Dihas, I hope I pronounced that right, Galiunas, I'm sorry if I haven't, it's shameful if I haven't, but he's asked about what you see as the top threats that are emerging in this new normal or post-COVID-19 world. So I'm just going to ask you, for each of you, just 20 seconds, if you wouldn't mind, just to highlight what you see as the key threats. Well, Jorge, you've already mentioned the fact that we're moving away from kidnapping to extortion. What are the, just 20 seconds, if you wouldn't mind, Jorge, we're running out of time, the key threats you see emerging, new ones?
Well, I think criminals are just going more digital. I think we need to be better protected against the criminal digital world and the threats that we're facing through extortions and affecting the computers and data centers. Unfortunately, this deals with accepting that threats are present, that they may be more aggressive, and we need to work harder about just telling our people and the employees about just be in the same channel with us.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much indeed. Powan, your thoughts, please. Major threats over the next few years.
Cybersecurity is a major threat. The risk coming through IoT devices, we have not even experienced yet. I think the first killing through IoT device is just around the corner, and it is going to be the new normal. Why should I risk myself when I can actually hack into an IoT device and kill somebody? That might be an autonomous car. It might be maybe changing the configuration of a factory. So IoT security risk is going to be the biggest and most brutal in future.
Thank you very much indeed, Powan. And Jeff, final comment to you then, please. What you see as the major threats going forward?
I think the physical security of the logical system. A lot of what we think are hacks really are poor cyber hygiene. So compliance within organizations, business versus personal devices in the workplace, having the proper VPN channels for people that are working remotely, educating employees to phishing and spoofing and different exploits that are used will significantly decrease threats that have been occurring. I mean, literally multi-million-dollar threats because somebody clicked on the wrong link in an email, brought a thumb drive from home and plugged it into the workplace. Workplaces that didn't invest in providing their employees with computers, an employee was working on a home computer that was infected. I mean, there's just all kinds of horror stories out there. So cyber hygiene.
Thank you very much indeed. Listen, we've run out of time. Thank you so much, panel, for your insightful. That was a fascinating discussion, I have to say. I really enjoyed that. We'll be returning to these issues. And interestingly, the panel should mention, particularly Jorge mentioned there about different types of criminal threats. In a couple of weeks' time, we have our 100th webinar, where I've got 2 ex-offenders coming in to talk about how they get round systems and why they think crime is easy and why they've got doubts about the effectiveness of security, even though they've sometimes been caught. So that's in a couple of weeks' time. Look out for that. So thank you very much indeed, panel. Thank you, the audience, for the questions. Very quick final points from me, if you wouldn't mind, just to remind you that the OSPA's nominations are open in South Africa, Kenya and Romania, and will open in other countries soon. So please make sure you keep abreast of who's opening the nominations. And to remind you, we're back on Thursday, same time, when the topic is tackling modern slavery. Whose responsibility is it? And there's the panel talking about new threats. There's a very traditional threat, which is reappearing in different guises. It's really serious, really, really much worse and more serious than I thought. And we've got a webinar this time next Thursday. So once again, thank you very much indeed to the panel. Don't forget, a copy of the webinar will be available on the website tomorrow, along with a blog about what these men have been saying. Thank you to you, the audience, for the questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get through everyone. There's just too many questions. And but thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you to Christine and Hannah in the background for all the work they put in. Until we see you again, and I hope it's on Thursday at 3:30, wherever you are in the world, stay safe.